Greetings and good morning. I'm Christopher Logan Hilt, and today we're going to be talking about something rather special and important to me. We're going to be talking about Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures, our enhanced edition, and we're going to go into some detail on how to play it. I've got some people that are going to help me do that, that play the game with me on a regular basis. So, in just a minute, I will get rid of my virtual background and we'll look at some books and stuff, and talk about it. So let me bring in Red. Good morning, Red.
Hello.
How's it going? Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell everybody how you feel about Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures.
Well, I'm Red Power Ranger Fan 27, and
Hello, Jake
Adventures is actually a really nice game.
Hold on, Jake.
I play it a lot. It's really fun.
Okay. Well,
so that's mostly why it's really fun.
Right. Well, we also have Jake Pendragon here, who's my usual co-conspirator on Fridays from the Hill. Why don't you introduce yourself, Jake, and let everybody know what you feel about Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures, enhanced or light edition? Because we're going to kind of look at all of it here and then go into the referee's guide.
All right.
It looks like everything is set up on this end, so I'm going to get rid of my virtual background. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Jake.
You're good. Okay, so anyway, I kind of grew up on Lenharrow's, so it's like the only game system I really know, but it's still a really good system.
Okay, so this is kind of an impromptu thing for me. I've never really done this before, so I'm trying to get set up. All right, so what I wanted to do was switch to this so that you can see what we're all looking at here. Our light edition, we have in one big volume, Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures. Now I'm going to throw this on the bigger screen, guys, for a second so everybody can take a look at the books before we get started.
Before we continue, can Red please turn down his volume? I can hear it down the hall, and it's creating this echo effect that's really messing with me.
Okay.
Give me a second.
The Turmoils of Rubates, correct? Okay. All right. And this would be our first player's expansion for the Enhanced Edition. And this actually we're going to be talking about next week. I don't know if I'm going to do this live every time, but see, this be the first one. And the fact that I pulled the trigger on the StreamYards update, I thought I'd explore it with you guys as I learned how it worked. We also have the Low Air Solo Adventures, which are 2 mini adventures in one book that can be used with either the light edition or the enhanced edition. Now, one of the adventures is intermediate, so it's more for the enhanced edition, but it still can be played with the light edition. Any thoughts on the light edition, guys?
Well, to be fairly honest, given the fact that, again, being raised on the system, the light edition just feels, I don't know, incomplete, but I guess that's the point.
It's
supposed to be a basic version of our game. So, how about you,
really
Red?
delved much into the light
if it's
edition.
a basic version of the game, then since that's the point, then you have just a basic version of Lenharrow, and that's what it is. It's meant
Okay.
I don't see the problems with it, because if it's supposed to be like a chopped down version of the game, then that's what it is. It's
Well, that is exactly what it is. But the Lenharrow Light Edition also comes with a full adventure in the back of the book. All of our campaign expansions are going to come that way too. Our first one we're hoping to put out in October. But I'm still working on maps. That's kind of what's holding me up on that. Okay, so then that brings us to our enhanced edition, which I already mentioned the player's Lenharrow Character's Companion, which is the first expansion to that. But this is the Lenharrow Player's Guide. Now, the reason why I've got it over here is because under normal circumstances, we would talk about this first. But if you're going from a game group's perspective, the first thing you would have to do is choose a player that is going to be your game master, and what we like to call in our system the referee. Now I'm gonna bring this up big for me guys again here, do the full screen, so if people can take a look at the cover. Now these covers match up really well, at least I think so. Now we may do like we're doing for the light edition. We're kind of doing a makeover edition with we're putting out the players guide for that in a different format, and we got Katie Robbins who's working on that, and she's done a great job. That one's already coming out. I've submitted those.
The cover alone on that one.
This is true. I mean, she did such a great job. Like I said, I bought the bullet and upgraded my StreamYard, so I wanted to check it out this morning. So we're going to be talking about the referee's guide here. And the way I feel is that once you have determined who your referee is going to be, then you need to know how to play the game. Once you know how to play the game, you can make characters and play the game. So we're going to start with the first chapter here and kind of go over it. I'm going to read actually, you know what? I'm going to start by reading the back of the player's guide and then the back of the rest guide, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound? Okay, so on the back of the Lenharrow's player's guide, it says, fantasy tabletop role-playing is one of the greatest forms of entertainment ever created. That being said, how do you top that? The answer is simple. You don't even try. Let's role-play, but let's do it with characters that you create and not the game system. Excuse me. In this rule system, we throw level right out of the window. It goes against the grain, I know, but I ask you, what's in a level? The age-old incredible feeling of leveling up is great. However, I wonder, why do I have to wait? Why shouldn't I be able to take my experience gained after each game session and learn skills right now? If you ever wondered or are even speculating in the question just presented to you, then welcome to Lenharrow. We've played this way for years, and I have to say, I don't miss leveling up. Your character naturally gets stronger as you play, and this is how it should be. Level was never a thing for your character, so why should it be something you have to deal with? The Lenharrow Player's Guide is your tool for creating great characters that use a system of lifestyles and professions that leaves it up to the players to decide what works in your game and what doesn't. Naturally, there's an arbiter of the rules because every tabletop RPG needs a storyteller or game master. But not for Lenharrow, but for Lenharrow, this player is called a referee as the creator intended it. Don't like that term? That's okay. You can call the game master whatever you like. It's your game. I like it for its simplicity and feel it is an apt title. However, we're talking about the other players for now. The referee has their own book. For those of you who only want to play, then this is the book for you. Not saying referees aren't players, because they are, but for now, you want to know what Lenharrow is. In the LPG, the Lenharrow Player's Guide, you'll find a character creation system all in the first chapter, and the rest of the book describes the terms. Within these pages are over 50 playable races, 10 lifestyles with 12 professions each, 6 dedicated lifestyles completely focusing on skills, and 10 general professions playable by any lifestyle and possibly earned through roleplay. In the Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures book, we presented you a complete game system, but kept it simple. This enhanced version of the Lenharrow Player's Guide adds so much more and still can be kept simple, but it is also able to take you beyond simple when you're ready to advance beyond the basic game. All of that's still here, to be sure, but there can be so much more, and the LPG gives you more. Combined with the Lenharrow Referee's Guide, we enhance everything presented to you in Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures, which can always be played with any basic adventure we intend to provide. But with the core system of the LPG and the LRG, the Lenharrow Referee's Guide, you can move on to the intermediate and later advanced games, but still play the basic adventures too. It's all compatible with just a little enhancement, so once more I say, welcome to the Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures game. We hope you enjoy your stay. Now, I've got a little Luna who wants to say hello for whatever reason, so we're going to greet our youngest member of the family.
Kitty.
And then I'm going to let her go see the tiger. Now, I'm going to bring you guys back up here real quick. Jake, What do you think of just the player's guide?
The player's guide, honestly, when I first started playing Lenharrow, I loved getting lost in the player's guide, just looking around, seeing what kinds of things that have been written in it. Like all of the descriptions for like all of the races and professions are very well done. And honestly, I love just making characters out of it. It seems complicated and confusing at first, but once you get it down pat, it is a wonderful system.
All right. Red, what about you?
Well, I do think about getting lost in the player's guide. I do that a lot. 'Cause I just wonder what page we're on, and then we're just like 5 pages like ahead or something. I don't know.
You don't know? You want to say anything else?
I don't know. Well, the player's guide is all well laid out. It's all in each step. So like the first step or the second step, you just go right to it and know what you're trying to do.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts, Jake, before we move on to the focus of this episode?
Nope, I think going straight to the ref's guide would be really good.
I'll take care of my normal morning allergy problem and then read the back of the referee's guide. Let me tell you a story. What's that you say? You'd like to participate? Okay, sounds good to me. Do you have a character? No? Here's a Lenharrow player's guide. Go create a character. But when you're done, come on back and I'll tell you that story. But you tell me what your character wants out of our story, and then we'll make a game out of it. Sound familiar? Role-playing is my favorite form of entertainment. With the LPG, you'll be able to create characters. But what then? We have characters, but what do we do with them? You hold the answer to that question in your hands. The Game Master sets the stage and is an arbiter of the rules, as we like to call this player the referee. That out of the way, the referee is the gaming judge, storyteller, and world builder. No small task, I know, but role-playing at its core is interactive storytelling. The referee presents the environment, and the other players decide how their characters react. The players have their characters, but the referee plays everyone and everything else. If you've gamed before, then you already know this. However, for the uninitiated, this is the essence of RPGs. The Lenharrow Referee's Guide is for game masters who want to run a Lenharrow Fantasy Adventure game. We give you some rules, but they're all optional. This is your game. Play how you like. What's contained in this book is, as the title suggests, a guide. No book could tell you how to run your game. That's for you to decide. However, a little structure can't hurt. In the LRG, you will find all the game mechanics you need to run a Lenharrow Fantasy Adventure game in the very first chapter. And I lost my place, of course. But we'll get this right. We're like I said, we're just kind of playing things off the cuff.
Yep, playing it by ear.
After that, we merely provide you with the following tools: suggestions on how to present a Lenharrow RPG to your players, a few notes on how to play deities in your game world, and then a few hints on how to interpret our magic system. After that, it's just the appendices, complete with an entire random world creation system, a bit about giving out treasure, and a bunch of charts that help you create magical devices. Basically everything you need to run a Lenharrow Fantasy Adventure game, but it's up to you if you want to use these tools. Good morning. You could just make everything up yourself. Now, should you like some guidelines and some rules, then feel free to use the magnitude of information presented in the LRG. We've got you covered. What's that? You want more? Have it your way. Also included in this core rulebook, we provide you with a complete adventure. What's that? You want a bunch of monsters like in the Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures book? Sorry, can't help you there. That's what the Lenharrow Creature Guide is for. A full referee's expansion. Yes, Lenharrow has a whole bestiary of monsters for you to use or not use. Together with the LPG, you'll have the complete core rules of the Lenharrow Fantasy Adventure game, Enhanced Edition. More? You want more? Give us a minute. More expansions are on the way for players and referees alike. Take a breath, and maybe we'll have some more adventures for you, too. You know, that story I was going to tell you. Now, I meant to put a bunch of links in the description, but I didn't have enough time. I will do that later, so you can come on back on the replay. They'll be in the description. Okay, so any thoughts on that, Red?
Thoughts on the ref guide?
Yes, sir.
I haven't looked through much of it, but I have run a few games before in the past. Using
Okay.
some of the book, the white edition book anyway.
We're going to go over the gist of it, and that's kind of why I wanted to have you guys here today, so you could ask me questions and help me include things that I may forget. So I wanted to do it differently. I didn't want to just sit here and read the book to the viewer. I kind of wanted to have an interaction so that we could explain how this game is played. Did you have anything to add, Red?
No.
Okay.
Really.
So I'm going to turn it over to Jake and let him have his piece.
Sorry, I've been only half listening. You're kind of throwing a lot of PR on me, like a bunch of people.
I am. It's not for you, sir. The PR is for anybody who watches this. And
I know, but I'm
if
your
they join
tech
us or in the
guy,
replay.
so
I didn't advertise for this, so we're most likely going to be on our own, but that's okay.
you're good.
All right. So the question I asked was, any thoughts on the referee's guide?
Well,
Before we
I
get started.
haven't had a chance to fully dive into the new version of the ref's guide, but from what you've been explaining to us and what we've been doing so far, as a game system, I find the referee's guide to be very interesting because a lot of systems in terms of tabletop role playing, from what I've heard, is you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. And then you look at the ref's guide and then these are just guidelines you can use or not use.
Yeah. Help me out for a minute, Jake, and say a little bit more so I can actually bring the ref's guide up so that if we do need to look at it, we can. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So yeah, where a lot of systems I see have like a lot of rigidity, I see mostly flexibility. There's all sorts of ways that you could be able to play the referee's Lenharrow in general. I've been in several different campaign settings and several different types of ways to play. Heck, even when I was in high school and running a gaming club, I used to run combat a little differently because I was still learning how to be a referee. So I just decided to make it so that crits just do flat ×2 damage whenever you got crits, which made things a little bit more interesting for my gamer group. But at the same time, it took a little bit away from what had made Lenharrow special.
Okay.
Lenharrow, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything. I was just hoping I would say something after I said
You
Lenharrow.
didn't have anything. All right. So let's
You're back.
Let's see if I can share this and get it right as we get it going here. Like I said, I'm going to explore the StreamYards with you guys. So I think I need to make that a little bigger. What do you guys think?
I can't read any of it.
All right.
Not blurry.
Can't read any of it. Okay,
It's
so
blurry.
it looks blurry. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's see. Okay, there should be a view on here, right? Oh, there it is. Zoom. What am I thinking? Let's go 100% maybe.
Better, but I could still pretty blurry.
All right. Well, that jumped way away from where I was. So, oh, I see. All right. So, yeah, my computer for some reason, and I haven't figured out how to make it stop, keeps going to Microsoft Edge when I open PDFs. I don't know why that is.
I think it might be a setting in your PDFs. You might be able to.
So instead, what I'm going to do, since that's given us grief, and I haven't figured out how to make it work yet. Like I said, we're playing around with this. I'm going to just show you guys. Yeah, you're up there. Okay, let's do this. Let's start my cam again, and go back to this, and put me here, and I will do this. And then after we talk about it a bit, let me make sure this is the right one. Yeah, how to be a referee in a role-playing game is what we wanted to look at. Can you guys see that a little clearer or no?
The camera's making it a little blurry, but it's big enough.
All right, well, like I said, let me see if I can present it a little bit. Share the screen again. And, well, I see what happened. Apparently, I actually closed it out. I'm going to instead open up the Word program, and I know I can zoom the view on that. So, Jake and Red, why don't you, Max? Jake, sometimes we call him Max because his nickname is Jake. But why don't you tell Red about some of the games you ran and when you did your club? While I
Some
get
of the
this
games
going.
I did?
Yeah. While I get this going here, sir. So, because I really want to have a better look at it.
Okay.
And I think I can do that, but I need to do it right. Okay, so this is what I wanted to do. Here you go, sir.
Sorry.
And I'm going to put it like this, and then I'll do this. Is that better?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, so let me try to fix this, and then we'll, when I'm ready, I'll get it bigger and we'll take a better look. So go ahead, guys.
Alrighty. Okay, so back in high school, originally, what was happening is I joined an anime club. And in that anime club, they wanted to do role play, but they didn't have a system to play with. So that gave me the perfect idea of asking Logan if I can bring his system to my high school. And he said, sure, that's completely and totally fine. So I brought it and made characters with quite a few members of that anime club. But sadly, that anime club had to shut down due to parental complaints. Not really sure what kind of complaints because it was only really open for 3 sessions and they were all planning sessions. But anyway, all the people that wanted to play RPG with me came and was like, hey, we still want to do this. Why don't we make our own club? I was a little reluctant at first because I don't know the first thing about running a club, but at the same time, I was really interested in running a game for my friends. So we got it together, got a teacher to sponsor us, and it was really fun. And we started working on the module King Zone, which is something my isn't that at the back of the Fantasy Adventures guide?
Yes,
Logan?
it is.
So we played that, but more of a beta version of that. Had like 4 or 5 people that I ran it for, and they all really loved it. In fact, the only complaint that I had on the system was one of the more avid gamers that played other systems said that there was way too many options, and we're like, that's a good thing.
Well, this is true.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
So, Red, what do you think about that? I mean, you're going to high school still. You got what, 2 more years?
Yeah, unless I go to like George Washington and just complete it all.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, would you think about starting a club at your school?
I don't know. If I go to George Washington, I won't know anybody, so
That's a good way to learn meet
it'll be
people.
hard to start a club there because I won't know anybody and how to do it. So
Well, that would you could ask your counselor. I bet they'd be more than willing to help you.
yeah, they probably would.
Okay, so I think I've got this going now, guys. So let's try this mode. Is that big enough? Can you read it?
Oh, that is perfect.
Yeah, way better.
Okay, and you can see us. All right, so this is what we got going on. Let's see. Greetings and welcome to the Lenharrow Referee's Guide. Before we begin, it is only fair to ask this question of yourself. Am I referee material? To answer this question, you must ask yourself other questions. Do I enjoy telling stories, jokes, and or giving instruction to other people? Now, how do you guys feel about that question? Let's hear an answer. Go ahead, Jake.
Am I referee material?
Do you enjoy telling jokes, stories, and or giving instruction to other people?
Yes, I do like that.
What about you, Red?
Yeah, I do like telling stories and jokes.
Do you like to write or tell stories? Go ahead, Red. We'll go back and forth that way. How's that
I
sound?
haven't written any stories, but I do like telling some stories.
Okay. Jake?
I love writing stories. For the longest time, I've been really into writing fan fiction and stuff, but I've been writing a story in the back of my head for a few years now. So I think that falls into a definite yes in do I like to write stories?
Okay. We'll stick with you and go on to the next question. Do you enjoy rolling dice?
It is very satisfying. So
Very
yes.
satisfying. Okay. So what about you, Warren? Do you enjoy rolling dice?
Yeah, I mean, I even have my dice right here, just sitting on my desk.
Well, mine are in my bag that's like 2 feet away from me, or otherwise I'd grab them too.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question for you, Warren, is: can I bluff at least fairly well?
Can
you bluff?
I'm a pretty good liar, so I can bluff pretty well.
Yeah, you got that one down pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you, Jake?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm a good liar, but then everyone seems to know when I'm lying.
Well, that one for me is a little rough. I'm not a very good liar, but I can bluff because there is a difference between lying and bluffing. Can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll stick with you, Jake. Can you tell the difference between PCs and RPCs, which would be player characters, and what we like to call referee player characters, but most game systems call NPCs, non-player characters?
I can definitely tell the difference between PCs and RPCs. Heck, I can even tell the difference between characters and players, but that's just that's a horse of a different color.
How about you, Red? Since you're wanting to start running games,
Well, yeah.
What's the difference? Tell us the difference.
Well, the difference would be the PCs are the player characters. So anyone who's actually in your game playing, that's who those guys are. The RPCs are like the monsters, the other characters, the side characters that you have playing along with the regular players, and pretty much anything that's not a PC, like the like innkeepers or I don't know, random people that you find around the place for an adventure.
Them rats scurrying in the sewers.
All right. So let me ask the next question, and we'll start with you, Jake. And I'm going to try to throw something else. I'm going to try to do a little bit on the Discord and maybe invite some more people to talk with us. But just like Elfbait just joined us, let's welcome him to the stream. Greetings, Elfbait. Good morning.
Yo, good morning.
Hello,
how are you doing?
Elfbait.
I am alive and well. I'm actually at my day job right now, but I figured I would hop in real quick.
You are most welcome, sir.
I work from home, so it's kind of easy to do. So
right now we're kind of going over
multitasking into a single task now.
Yes.
Right now we're kind of going over the basics
with Elfbait this whole time.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I noticed that. I have Discord right on my other screen here, so I was noticing that.
All right. Yeah. Like I was trying to say, right now we're going over the basic questions on Am I Referee material that is in the introduction to our Lenharrow Referees guide. Now, I don't know if you've seen the cover for that, but I'll bring it up again a little bit later.
Well, that's fine. Continue with where you were. I know you're going to with something.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to continue where we were with Red, and then we'll Max, go ahead and answer the question. And then if you want to go ahead and answer as well, Elfbait. On my screen, really small, it looks like Eli.
You can call me Eli. That's my real name.
Okay. Well,
wow, your special power is still working.
Okay, so naming people. No, I saw it on the screen, so I didn't imagine that. It's right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't hide I mean,
I do have a knack for that of guessing.
there was a time where the first 3 pages of Google for my, if you Googled my name, first 3 pages were all me. So
Okay. Okay, so our last question was, can you tell the difference between PCs and RPCs? So the next question is, do I like to entertain others? Go ahead and answer that, Red. And Max, go ahead and answer right after if you like.
Okay.
Well, I do like to entertain others. It's kind of fun, just telling a nice story and entertaining people. Yeah, it's fun.
I do like to say that I entertain others, mostly with my storytelling and stuff. I like to create a world that people can interact with and have fun with. So I do like to entertain others. Sometimes I like making them laugh. Sometimes I like making them smile. It's just the little things.
yeah, definitely like to entertain folks. Storytelling has always been a knack ever since I was a kid. Little kid. I am kind of a consummate overworld builder. So any chance to tell stories within worlds is always good.
It's always nice to see another world builder. I've been developing a world of mine for a while now, and despite the fact that it's been in my head for years, I've only like a couple weeks ago started writing stuff down.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a forever GM since I started. I accidentally discovered D&D back in '79 on visiting a friend in an old neighborhood, and then went home that weekend and tried to recreate it from memory after playing it once wrong. And my parents were my first players. I created this whole adventure from scratch called the Temple of Elf Doom. I was 8, so the name was stupid, but I created a whole, yes, I like to entertain. My first foray, I created this whole background lore in the form of a bard song done to the tune of Greensleeves.
A 16th century Greensleeves?
Awesome.
Yes.
That happens to be my brother who passed away in March. That was his favorite song.
Yeah, well, it like I said, but entertaining, yes. I mean, just making a map and populating it with monsters was not enough for me. One weekend after playing my first game of D&D, I had to go extra. I had to have lore. There had to be a story, And the only people I was trying to impress was my parents.
Well, that's a good way to go. Sometimes I tried to get my mom to play. She played a couple of times. That kind of happened with me when I was 12 in '82. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to play this game?" And I went over to his place, and we played it wrong. I made a fighter that I named Thor for whatever reason. Go ahead.
How did you play it wrong?
Okay.
I always gotta wonder how people played it wrong, because I will tell you how we played it wrong. But
the role playing part was fine. I didn't really understand it at the time because it was the first time we played, but he was chasing me around as the game master with a gray ooze. Okay, now I don't know about you, but as a game master, reading up on the gray ooze, it's not that fast.
No, but also he already had learned the first lesson of being a good game master, and that's break the rules.
Break the rules, exactly right.
We played it wrong in that we didn't understand that it was supposed to be a GM on one side of the screen and a player on the other side of the screen. So we were both players. We made characters, and we laid the map out in front of us and played it almost like a board game, going room to room. And as we would go to a room, we'd pull open the book and read the description, and then we would fight the monsters and stuff like that. So we were very much playing. Considering it's 1979 and we're
Right.
8. So this isn't even hardwired into society and culture yet, D&D.
Nobody knew what it was.
Yeah, and so it looked very much like a board game or a choose your own adventure book, which actually kind of didn't even exist at that time either.
Not really. They were there when I started, but they were still kind of rare, and I didn't even know about them at the time.
But I don't want to derail your stream here, so you had questions.
That's kind of my whole idea with this. I was going to make a video. And then I thought about it. I said, I don't want to do the same boring, here's my book, this is what's in it. I thought maybe an interaction would be better. I was going to try it out for the first episode. And if it does well, I think I might do it for all of my. I bought the bullet and upgraded my StreamYard, so I
Well, yeah,
wanted
I
to
mean,
play
if you're
around
going to
with
have a
it.
questionnaire, it makes sense to have a panel because then anybody who's watching can see that there is no one real answer to this and that the answers are complicated. I think there's a big myth out there that GMing is hard. It's really not. I mean,
Not really.
it's the size of it in people's imaginations and preconceptions far outweighs what it actually is. In fact, the key to
This is
GM
true.
being a good GM is honestly nobody will ever know how dumb your ideas are because they're just happy to play. And I mean, steal from everything. Yes, your adventure may be the last episode of Scooby Doo that you watched, but if you run it right, your players are never going to know. And even if they do know, they're probably not going to care because they probably watched it, dug it too, and they're just going to have fun and go along for the ride.
This is true. That's the kind of how I like to run games. Is a lot of times I will write ahead of time, but my favorite game sessions have always been just making them up right off the cuff.
I mean, I'm in the middle of writing an adventure for my own use that is a love letter to every movie, comic book, TV show that I loved in the 80s as a kid, all the fantasy and some of the science fiction all in one place. And it's just massive homage after homage after homage. Anybody who's of my generation or interested in stuff from my generation is going to play that adventure and go, hey, that's Krull. That's Dragon Slayer. That's never ending story. It's all these little beats that are dropped in. They're muted to where they're not like obvious, but clearly if you know the inspiration and the origin, you're going to pick it up. But that's the whole point of that one.
We're going to kind of cover that today too, and I go over that in our refs guide. I that's kind of what we're here for today. So it's good that you're here, so you can throw in your 2 cents.
Well, I'll shut up so you can throw in your.
Did you? That's okay, man. Did you answer the question? Do I like to entertain others?
Yeah, I answered that.
I lost track. We were having a good conversation, so
I was the first one to answer that. Then it was Jake, and then Elfie.
okay. So then we're moving on to: do I like to be the center of attention? And we'll go ahead and we'll start with Jake this time.
To be quite honest, this is the first real hard no for me. I don't really care too much for being the center of attention. I don't mind being a ref because it's for smaller groups and I'm fine with it, but this is the first no for me.
Okay. How about you, Red?
Yes and no. It's like sometimes I do, but other times I just feel like I should be alone most of the time. So like it's a yes and no. So like if it's something, if being a ref terms, yes, I do like being the center of attention there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that statement. That's how I started. How about you, Eli?
Just a second here.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't say that I like it, but I'm not afraid of it. So it's kind of a neutral for me. It's not something I seek, but at the same time, I'm never really fully comfortable as a player in a game. I much prefer the other side of the screen. I don't play with a screen, but even at tables, I tend to not have a game screen. But,
like you, I am more comfortable behind the screen, and yeah, I use one.
I find a lot of times when I'm sitting there as a player, the DM part of my brain is still going.
Always, yeah.
And so I'm it's hard for me to just sit back and enjoy an adventure because I'll be like, I would have done that different, or he could have done this, or I wonder if he's trying to do this DM trick. There's that part of my brain that's always analyzing the adventure instead of just shutting off and playing.
Logan did that during our last campaign session, where it was like he completely derailed my campaign. I had this idea in mind, and then he was like, "What if we did it this way?" And I was like, "Okay, that's how we'll start it." And then he just completely ran off in the opposite direction.
It was a role-playing opportunity, I thought, and I ran with it, and it helped you out, I thought.
Yeah, I won't cross the line as to actually vocalize to the player, to the DM, the current DM.
Generally, I don't, but in Max's case, I was kind of teaching him how to run games, so it's when you're also acting as mentor to a student, sometimes it's hard not to jump in. But that's generally I try if it's a refs table and I'm at a refs game, I try to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll take us to the next question: is do other people listen to me? Let's start with Red because I think he might struggle with this one a little bit.
Well, sometimes is my answer. Like sometimes people listen to me like 100% of the time, and then other times they just don't listen to me at all. So like,
I'm going to let you in on a little secret, Red. When you're the game master, they're going to be listening to you.
Yeah, well, when I'm the game master, yeah, but since I've been playing most of the time, people don't always listen to me. Like,
Okay,
I say something funny and no one will listen to me.
It's tricky when you're a player because you're one of many voices. So I feel like it often is easy to feel like people aren't listening to you, but I think everybody else is kind of fighting for the same airtime, and they're probably having the same concern themselves. Yeah, but as far as like as a GM, yeah, I'm kind of hard to ignore. I'm a loud voice, and if I'm actually at a table, I'm up doing pantomime, and I do voices, and not all the time, but I mean, I get into it.
Guilty.
Excuse me.
Okay, Jake, how about you?
Do people listen to me? That's kind of a yes and no. Like, I have to work to get people to listen to me, but yeah, people listen to me.
Okay, well, we'll go over to Eli then on that question.
Do people listen to me? Yes. I've got years and years of practice in exerting myself because I used to be very soft-spoken. But I'm also kind of a big guy with a boomy voice, and it's sort of hard to ignore me.
Also, the guy with the beard tends to get listened to. I don't know why.
Well, it's like an antenna.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so that'll take us to the next question. Do other people respond well to what I have to say? And we'll just continue with you, Eli.
I'm going to answer this one real quick, and then I got to go for a bit.
All right, no problem.
I'm not going to drop out of stream, but I'm just going to shut my camera and mute.
Jump back in when you want.
Do other people respond well when what I have to say? Yes, for the most part, yes. I don't generally miss on too many beats when it comes to storytelling and DMing. So, all right, I'll be back when I can.
All right, we'll see you when you get back. Okay, Red, go for that question.
Other people respond well to what I say? Well, yes and no. They do for the most part when I'm reffing, but other times there's something I do that I just after a while I do see that I didn't make a good decision there, and other people also agree with that. So it depends upon what it is, I guess.
Okay, how about you, Jake?
I like to say yes on that. I mean, once people do listen to me, typically they respond very well to what I have to say.
Okay.
But it just, like I said for the previous question, it takes a while for people to listen to me.
All right. I kind of agree with you in that way. But once I started running games, it was hard for people to stop responding well to what I had to say. So we'll get to the last question here, and we'll stick with you, Jake. Am I fair when it comes to gaming?
I'm going to have to say no with an asterisk.
Okay.
I like to be unfair in favor of the players.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to be that neutral arbiter of the rules.
Exactly. I just love making sure my players are having a good time. So sometimes I make it unfair in the player's advantage.
Okay. How about you, Red?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm kind of fair. I kind of also make it a bit more easy sometimes. So, that's...
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that. In my case, with a lot more experience, I found that I try to be as neutral as possible. But yeah, I will favor the players a lot because in the final analysis, This is a game, and we're here to have a good time. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're gonna go over them a little bit one more time, because if you can answer yes to at least 6 of the previous questions, then you may have what it takes to be a referee. So, just a yes or no, guys, on the first one. Do I enjoy telling stories, jokes, and/or giving instruction to other people?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I got 2 yeses. So keep track of your scores, guys. You're 1 for 1. Okay. Do I like to write or tell stories?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 2 for both of you. Do I enjoy rolling dice?
Yes.
That's 3. Can I bluff at least fairly well?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you honestly say yes to that one?
Mm,
I mean, I got a definitely yes for more. You were
Yeah.
kind of hesitant on that
Yeah.
one.
I can.
yeah, I'm kind of a maybe, so I guess I lean towards no on that.
Okay, so that would mean that you are 3 and 1, right? 1 no?
3 yes, 1 no.
Okay, we can call it a maybe if you want. And Warren's
Yeah.
4 yeses. All right, so let's get to, can I tell the difference between PCs and RPCs?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we got a lot of yeses so far, Max. That would be 4 for you and 5 for Red. Do I like to entertain others?
Yes.
Okay, so we're at 5 and 6. So Warren, you already qualify, but you can keep throwing in yeses or no's if you like. Do I like to be the center of attention?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Oh, Jake, he's looking bad for you. Do other people listen to me?
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, so we'll call 2 maybes a yes. How about, do other people respond well to what I have to say?
Yes.
Okay, there's 6 for each of you at least. And am I fair when it comes to gaming?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my no with an asterisk. Does
That's
that count as
actually-
yes?
No, with an asterisk. Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
The way you answered, I would say that's a yes for you.
Okay.
So, if you're reading this and still asking yourself what a referee's job is in an RPG, but it's still answered yes to most of these questions, then don't feel bad. Let me scroll down to the last bit of that. And having said that, and asking yourself the 10 questions of refereeing, by all means, continue reading this book. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to how to read the. Now I'm going to skip the how to read the tool belt and go to the rest of the introduction, and go to the official Lenharrow game rules, and we'll kind of discuss those if you guys are up for it.
Of course. I'm way up for them.
Okay, let me see. Does that look good, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so rule number 1, make sure that your players are having fun. Try to have fun yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? Go ahead, Red.
Well, there are times when I get over into my how I want to tell a story, but I get so into it that I make it so that it's kind of not how I wanted it. Like afterward, I look back at it and I'm like, maybe I should have done something slightly different, because that's probably why some people didn't think it as fun in the moment. But then if you change it perfectly, then you can always have fun.
Okay. Jake, how about you?
Honestly, I find that rule to be very cut and dry. If you're not having fun,
Then what are you doing?
then something needs to change.
Clearly, I agree with all these rules because I wrote them. Okay, so number 2, all the rules presented in both the LPG and LRG are optional. This means that as the referee, you must decide which rules suit your campaign and your game, as well as your players. Now, this is more of a as a game master, is this appealing to you? It would be my question. Go ahead, Jake.
It is very appealing to me because, honestly, looking at other systems, I haven't really played other systems, but looking at other systems, I find a lot of rigidity in how to play, and there's certain things I don't understand, like, oh, the wizard can't use blades of any kind, or this can't do this or that. No, you can't. And that's pretty much all I see when I look at other systems. With Lenharrow, it's like, ask your ref.
And then generally that answer is, oh, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Or no, you can't do that. It's up to the ref. How about you, Red? What do
I
you think of that?
refuse to give you
Yeah,
the +10
I mean,
sword
that's
of evil smiting.
normal. You know, the ref does decide what rules work for the players. Because like sometimes there are some things where you can make it so that you can use a different different stuff. I don't because like because like sometimes doing something you can make it cost a faith point. You know, because that's how.
Well, we'll get into faith points in a little bit.
But that I was just mentioning that because like like some things, some refs might not want them to use one, but then other refs probably do. So it kind of
Other game systems use stuff similar to faith points, but I think ours is a little bit more user friendly. But we'll see. We'll see how we feel about it when we get to it. All right. So rule number 4 is be an equal opportunity antagonist. This means that you shouldn't pick on any single character or player.
Rule 3.
Did I miss rule 3?
Yes.
Thank you, Jake. Be
Be
fair.
fair.
If all of your players lose their characters, it will no longer be fun for them. Keep in mind that sometimes characters die, and that's part of the story. But if you wipe out the entire group, are they still having fun? Now, sorry, I tried to skip over this one because this one seems instinctive to me. But go ahead, Red. Tell us what you think about that rule.
Being
fair.
Yeah, because if they all die, I don't think they're having fun. But like if just one person dies, then the other group, the rest of the group can resurrect them in some cases.
What do you think of the term equal opportunity antagonist?
That's an extra.
You have to be equal opportunity.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm wanting to get to that one really bad.
You want to get to it.
Okay.
See,
so
you really love that rule so much.
I love that rule.
Willing to forgo being fair.
Well, being fair seems like a no-brainer to me. Would you agree with that, Red?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not fair at all and you just make it so that some characters, enemies just can't die, then it's just so unfair that they can't even do anything.
Okay, Jake, thoughts on being fair?
Okay, when it comes to being fair, I personally think there's like lots of things that you should do in games. Like I have accidentally broken this rule a couple of times. Like, for example, there was one time where I had a specific character that was important to the plot. And for some reason, one of my players, I'm not naming them, just did not like them and wanted to kill them. And I was like, no, they just can't die.
Well, my advice to you on that one is be fair and arbitrate equally to both players. It happens when players want to fight.
Oh,
so any other thoughts on being fair? What was that, Max?
It wasn't players wanting to fight. There was a player that didn't like an NPC and wanted to kill the NPC.
Whether they are against a player in the group or you as a player as a ref, it's really no different.
Okay.
Still have to be fair to both yourself and to the player.
Right. I kind of forgot that rule because it was like, I really hate this guy. I'm going to kill him. And I'm like...
Also remember that as the game master, as the referee, you are the final arbiter of that rule. So...
Right.
All right. Can we actually get on to number 4?
No. We're going to number 5 now.
Okay. Okay, so be an equal opportunity antagonist, okay? Don't pick on any single character or player any more than you do so, and always remember rule number 1. So... Jake, give us your lowdown on that one.
All right. Being an equal opportunity antagonist. You keep saying this rule. You absolutely love this rule. But in terms of my thoughts on it...
This goes into what we were saying about being fair.
Right. You have to be fair to your entire group as a whole. But at the same time... I don't know. If the plot calls for it, I think it's fun to pick on specific players. But as long as that doesn't carry into like 5 sessions long of ha ha ha, I cursed you or something. Like maybe like 1 session where you pick on someone, but then you have to pick other people to pick on.
You can focus on one player in a game session, but you got to remember that there are other players sitting at the table. And they need the game time too. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
I also find this rule kind of goes hand in hand. Like be an equal opportunity antagonist, but that also applies to things like, oh, please don't make your big bad guy like weak to only one specific weapon.
I agree with that.
Like,
There should be ways to win. Not
like there shouldn't
not
just be
ways.
I picked up the legendary sword and that's the only thing that can hurt the vampire. No.
Because that makes it so only one player can do
It's the play,
to
really.
the finale, and that can be bad to other players sometimes. Again,
Yeah, that kind of muddles up rule number 1.
Yeah, it kind of does. Okay, Red. Any thoughts on being an equal opportunity antagonist, sir?
Well, being equal opportunity would mean like that everyone gets their time to like say something. Because like if you're just sitting there and you just can't do anything because no one's listening, or you're just trying to figure something out, and you want people to, you would want to call on people sometimes to know what they're trying to do. Because if they know what they're trying to do, but they just are sitting there wanting to do something but they can't, it's not really fair to them, you know?
Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys, both of you, this question. We'll keep it with Red, but then we'll move over to Jake. As a game master, playing in my games, do you feel that I am an equal opportunity antagonist, and why?
Most of the time.
Most.
Yeah. So do you have a why, or are you just?
Well, because like sometimes I'm sitting there waiting to be called on, and then I just don't get called on because when I try to get your attention, sometimes I can't. So.
Do you find it better? Do you find it's easier to get my attention on the live stream games?
On the live stream games, it's really easy, but like actually on tabletop, like actually playing, sometimes I can't get your attention.
Okay, because I'm starting to like this live stream game stuff.
Yeah, during the live stream, I can easily get your attention. There's every opportunity to do that.
That's because I'm looking at everybody's player in a box. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jake. Your turn.
All right. So, I really do think you're an equal opportunity antagonist. Sometimes I don't want to say a detriment, but at the same time, it's like one thing I've noticed during my birthday game. You were such an equal opportunity antagonist that it felt like my character wasn't the party leader. I mean, I know he's not the quote unquote main character of that campaign setting or anything, but it's like there were certain instances where it felt like I was being glossed over when really I'm the one who should be grabbing people's attention in certain moments.
This was true, but again, I try to never ever focus on just one player. Even if the game is meant for them specifically, it's also for everybody else sitting at
it is for everyone else. I understand that. That's not what I was trying to say.
Even if it's a virtual table.
It felt like, despite the fact that I was the party leader, it didn't feel like I was the party leader, if that made any sense.
It does, and I appreciate constructive criticism because it helps me become a better game master. Never just out and out say, all right, I don't like that. No.
Right, because, yeah, I understand people getting their turns, but it felt like me sitting there going, hey, guys, let's do this, and everyone just, nope, we're doing this. And it's like, do I not get a say as party leader? Whatever.
This is true. Okay, so let's move on to question 6. Rule number 6, not question.
Did we get
five
though?
What's that?
Didn't we? Did we not do 5?
You know what? You're right. We did not do 5. I'm trying to skip rules again. All right, so number 5. Don't let personal feelings ruin your game. This is a game that should be played as such. If no one likes your games, then they'll stop coming to them. Jake, go ahead.
Alrighty. This rule kind of like goes in hand with the saying, you leave your baggage at the door, or what happens outside a game shouldn't affect the inside of game. Like, if you're having a quarrel with someone in real life, that's not the character. Or if you're having problems with the character, don't have problems with the person.
Well, this is true. Anything else?
I'm back. If you haven't noticed.
We thought you were back. I was gonna bring you in again slowly, and I was gonna ask you if you had been listening or if you were working.
I was not able to. I was in a morning meeting. So
what we're doing is we're going over our basic rules of the game system, and again, everything's optional, but this is basically
No. On this particular one here, personal feelings are definitely one of those things that can get in the way of a game. I don't think that they necessarily always come from outside of the game either. The biggest thing, honestly, to help with this one is be people and talk. I have a horror story probably the ultimate horror story of a game gone wrong, in that I had a longtime player and friend who is neither anymore because of a game,
it happens.
of a campaign. I don't know. I mean, I know he was going through some stuff at the time, but at the same time, the things he said about me and his frustrations with the game were never communicated up to the point where he exploded. There's some details in there that I don't really have the time to go into, but ultimately, I mean, if you don't get those, if you hold on to those feelings, first of all, if you harbor those feelings, you're going to have problems. If you don't talk about those feelings, you're going to have problems. And if you don't talk about them in a timely fashion, you're going to have problems. So definitely, your personal feelings can ruin the game, even if they're from within the game. Like if a player isn't enjoying the game, like you're not running it the way that they want to play, that's up to them to talk to you about it, because ultimately maybe the game isn't for them. But also, as a GM, if you're doing things that are upsetting your players, touching on content that they're really not comfortable with, running a combat only game when it's clearly been established that you have a very role playing oriented group, well, then that's an issue too. So that's, personal feelings goes in with communication as far as I.
This is true, and when you run games long enough, this will happen. It's inevitable. This has happened to me a couple of times.
I've never lost a friend over. I've lost players, but I did lose a friend this one time, and it was kind of. It's still traumatic. I mean, it's like I've. The feelings were very similar to that that you go through with a breakup.
Oh, I can imagine.
To be quite honest, because work friend, real life friend, been through some stuff, been in a bunch of my campaigns, talked gaming with him daily, just very much, and then he was gone.
When I tried, I had a player that wanted to just show up the game to ruin another player's game.
That's not okay.
No, it's not okay. And I tried to talk to him at a game. We tried to we had a club meeting and voted. And nothing doing. He wouldn't stop. And finally, I just broke up the game. Now, I wish I'd never done that. I wish I'd have just asked him to leave the game.
I find that office-style management tricks work really well. In a campaign I had, I've been in corporate America for almost 20 years now, in one aspect or another. And so I had a player who, while it wasn't personal feelings, it kind of relates to the same thing. He kept repeating a behavior in game or behaviors in game that were disruptive to the table. In this case, it was different. It wasn't personal feelings, but still you can apply this. So I went through a management style, verbal warning, second verbal, written, final. I'm like, look, man. And finally he got to the point where I'm like, look, this is your final. I've literally handed you a piece of paper telling you what's wrong. If you don't fix it, I'm gonna kick you out. And he fixed it. I mean, it was now. Granted, he's also been in corporate America, so maybe it was just the mindset. But I feel like if you can, there's a reason why GMing counts on resumes for a lot of companies as management experience.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, there are people who have used it as management experience. You are working with you're working with teams, you're doing collaborative work, you're, as a GM especially, you are managing different personalities. It's very much like managing a team of employees or coworkers. And so the same stuff that I get from my day job was easy enough to implement into my gaming table, just like you can flip it around and go from your gaming table to your day job. So yeah, I mean, personal feelings aside, I mean, granted, you want to keep them away from the table, but there are also some very business-like ways you can address them. So,
Okay. How about you, Red?
Yeah, think about personal feelings, because like if the entire group is going in a different direction than where you want them, that would kind of change how you feel about the game. Because like if you don't have anything planned in that direction and they just want to go there, you could just have nothing there and they could just get bored, honestly.
Well, this is kind of good because we are all in different stages of experience in running games. Red's just starting out. Jake has been running games for a few years now, and Eli and I have been running games for a long time. So this is going to help. I appreciate y'all being here.
yeah, 40 plus years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to number 6. Our 6th rule is be tolerant. Bear in mind that your players are only human and want to have a character that they can relate to. Don't just tell them that their character cannot do something. If they want to do something in game that their character cannot do, like jumping over a ravine 50 feet across, explain to them what will happen if and when they fail. If they still want to try, then let them. Role play the results and make it realistic. Should a character die under these circumstances, then they have no one to blame but themselves. Also remember rule number 1, and our rule number 1 is always have fun. So, all right, so we ended with Red, so keep it going, Red.
Okay, so like with that, like I kind of laughed at like jumping over a ravine 50 feet across because it was
Players
like,
have tried it.
why would you want to do that? You would, and if your character is not able to do that, you're gonna die.
I literally had a player say, "I have a pole. I'm going to pole vault it."
And you also have to
Right.
you have to understand that the current
I would just be like, try, see what happens.
the
And then
current
dies.
this current mentality in a lot of gaming too right now is that the players should be able to do anything they want. Verisimilitude be damned.
Right.
And so it's not a healthy attitude because challenge is what makes the games fun, and overcoming adversity and impediments and dealing with the impossible is just as fun as being able to do everything. In fact,
Yes,
probably
true.
more fun. They always talk about like having all the options is basically the same thing as having no options. So if you can do anything, then you might as well do nothing. So yeah, I think in those cases that with the 50-foot chasm, it's like, all right, cool. How are you going to get across? Would be my question.
Exactly. How are you going to do that? You explain it to me, and we'll role play it.
Exactly. I mean, if you insist on jumping, cool. I'm probably going to have you take fall damage, even if you succeed on the roll, because there's no way that you statistically can get across the 50-foot passage unless you can come up with a really cool way. Like, my players used to have a small character in the party who had a climbing movement speed and would constantly get across chasms by tying a rope around the monkey goblin's waist and having the orc in the party chuck her across the chasm where she would cling on the other side, climb to the other side, tie off the rope to a tree. As a GM, I'm like, okay. They went so far as to mount a small catapult on the back of the orc to allow extra flinging. And so the monkey goblin would sit in this catapult like a little Yoda harness, and when needed, would just go click, and they would fling the goblin across with the rope attached. This is a very swashbuckly nautical campaign, so I was open to a lot of just goof. But
sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It depends on my mood.
It depends on the campaign.
Yeah,
If I'm running a dark, I mean, we're way off topic here, but if I'm playing a dark fantasy campaign that's supposed to be gritty and grounded, no. But if we're swashbuckling on the high seas and first of all, we already have to accept we've got a monkey goblin and an orc in the party.
Right.
So, we're clearly not
Lenharrow, we have 50 plus races to choose from. So
I played Talislanta, and so nobody has as many races as Talislanta.
We like to do options, and that's not the end all be all. The ref is free to add whatever races they want. Okay, Jake, what do you think about that? About being tolerant?
Well, first and foremost, I feel like the 50-foot ravine is something that happened in one of your games because of how specific it sounds. I want to jump across the 50-foot
That's why I use it as an example.
But anyway, they're just, as a referee, you have to keep an open mind because, yeah, as a referee, you're not just one single person. You're many different people with many different ideals, which means you also have to grant your players that sort of tolerance.
Well, like I said, you are as a game master, you are everyone and everything in the game world.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Can we move on to the last rule? Well, on this column, we actually have 10.
One last comment on tolerance, honestly,
Okay.
and that is tolerance always has a limit, because tolerance needs to have reason attached to it. I mean, you should be rational in your tolerance. If you're overly tolerant in a game, then you don't need rules at that point. And why are we playing a game, and why aren't we just telling stories and playing make believe?
That takes us back to my favorite rule, which I'll look at real quick here again for Elfbait's benefit. Is rule number 4: be an equal opportunity antagonist. I think you can get the gist of that, or you would need a clarification on an equal opportunity antagonist.
Equal opportunity antagonist. Well, I mean, for me, that means that honestly, an old school attitude on that is that you're really just a referee. You are
Right.
not fighting the players. The game is fighting the players, and you're just there to be the referee and the judge at the arbiter of fate. Adversarial DMs is one of my hot buttons. Adversarial players is one of my hot buttons.
Me too.
I do not understand. I've been in the game long enough to where I've known when that was actually a thing, where that was considered almost commendable. Like, I beat my players, ha ha ha.
Yeah, I never liked that.
It kept me from playing Call of Cthulhu for decades. In fact, I'm only about 10 years into playing Call of Cthulhu when I've been around as long as Call of Cthulhu.
I wouldn't mind playing that and checking it out. I just haven't had the opportunity.
Every time I asked anybody about it, in a game store, at a convention or whatever, the leading reply I got, and this is kind of going to that equal opportunity antagonist, every GM or player would just pitch it to me as, "Oh yeah, it's really cool. Your characters always die or go insane." I'm like, "Yay, sign me up."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to play that. And then later on, I watched one of Seth Skorkowski's videos on it, and I'm like, all right, he's speaking some truth here. This is a man who's giving me the depth of the game, that it's not all about dying and going insane. Those are certainly things that can happen and are very likely to happen, but there's a shit ton more going on.
I have to say, Seth Skorkowski's videos got me into this this path where I watched Old Geek and then Bear, and it led me to meeting you and a lot of other people. And
there's a reason Skorkowski's channel he's on his second any nomination now.
Well, he has some very awesome videos. I especially like his ones where he has the origin of a certain monster. They're hilarious.
His character sketches. But beside the point, that you're talking about adversary, equal opportunity antagonist. Yes. You should remain neutral. You really are not an antagonist. You are just there to judge the game. The dice and the world itself are challenging the players. That's why I'm a real big fan of mechanics that allow for the dice to influence the story. If you want to see a great example of that, check out Mage's Musings channel for his review.
I watch him too.
In his review caps, he demonstrates very clearly how these old school concepts, such as the reaction rolls, actually, honestly, paramount is the reaction roll. Just simply leaving the reaction of an NPC up to a mechanical dice roll, not just random fate, because there are modifiers for intent and stuff like that, can clear up a lot of that adversarial attitude. Because it is literally the dice not deciding, but interpreting the fate of that encounter.
I agree. What's that actually comes right into our seventh rule, which is institute house rules. These are rules used specifically by you and your players. Keep in mind that you are the referee and interpreter of the rules. We as referees make the rules, but bear in mind that rules may sometimes have to be broken. That's why you're here to decide when rules need to be broken, amended, or changed. Since we were already over to you, Eli, go ahead and tell us your thoughts on that.
House rules.
If you agree with that.
What can I say? House rules are something that I have used, that I'm fully in support of, and honestly, anybody who is against house rules is against traditional RPGs, even though they may claim that RPGs are played this way. No, they're not. Even the creators of D&D didn't play it the way that it was set in the books. This
is true. Gygax encouraged.
Gygax and Arneson both had very different tables, and if you grew up with a steady stream of Dragon magazines like I did, and actually you can see this, Geek and I talk about this a lot, actually. He didn't have a lot of exposure to the magazines growing up, and so his game is very different than mine. I have a very broad, open mindset when it comes to even the old school concept of gaming, because for me, I was always one Dragon magazine away from like 8 new ideas that a lot of people didn't have. So a lot of my house rules were stuff that other people had come up with house rules wise and put into a magazine. But for the longest time in my second edition days, every player in my game got to roll in a D100. What did I call it? Their ancestry chart. And it was anything from an inheritance of extra money to like having giant or troll blood that would give you like a +1 or 2 strength. You might have an heirloom that was like, okay, you're a first level character starting with a +1 sword because you have your father's sword, and every player in my game would roll on this chart because it was just a way to make, especially back in the days with first and second edition when characters were very much samey on paper. It was a way to make each character slightly different. You might be Fey-blooded, so you have a +2 on saves versus spells. Something like that. Just very, of course, framing it old school wise. So yeah, I've always played with house rules. I think if you're not playing with house rules, you're missing out, and you're probably not getting the most fun out of the game that you could. Because chances are there's something in the rules as written that rubs you the wrong way, and if you feel like you need to change it, then you should. There's some people who are absolutely raw, and that's cool. Rules as written, and that's cool too. That suits them. But by all means, house rule the crap out of the game.
I agree. I'm about half and half on the Dragon magazine. I really didn't get into it until I hit second edition in the mid 90s. I had seen Dragon magazine, but wasn't as familiar with it. But I love second edition, and Zeb Cook made a point in the second edition Player's Handbook when he introduced the initiative system for second edition D&D, which is kind of what I use. He had somebody in the background say, we've been doing that for years.
Oh yeah.
I felt that way with when I made my game system. That's exactly what my intention for house rules.
Well, a lot of stuff that comes out in later editions is somebody's house rule,
right?
Or it's a rule that's been around, faded out of popularity. Like even advantage was something that was proposed as far back as OD&D. Advantage, disadvantage.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not real hip on advantage, disadvantage myself, but
I'm saying it as an example. I mean, advantage, disadvantage is often maybe a little bit too much of an advantage or disadvantage because it equates to about a +5.
Well, that takes us to a point that Red made. We kind of use something called faith points, which is kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
But each player has a set amount, and if they use them, they're gone until they get some back.
Yeah, I mean, those systems though have existed since the dawn of the game.
Right. So, like I said, it's similar, but
yeah.
The way they do advantage, disadvantage, I thought was a little. For me, it didn't work, but that's just for me. Other refs may take that and run with it.
No, that was more to the point of house rules, though. I mean, with house rules, honestly, the game has been built with house rules in mind and around house rules. It was issue number 2 of The Dragon, so the second issue to ever come out back in the 70s, that started to propose new character classes.
I remember
from the very get-go.
Old Geek has been going over the Dragon magazine, and I watched his video on Dragon magazine too. So that's,
it's part and parcel with the game. But anyways, I've gone on long enough.
That's okay. Okay, Jake. I'm going to go in experience order here, since you would be next with the less experience than Eli and I. What do you think about house rules?
Well, I haven't instituted any myself personally, or at least not that I'm aware of. But the idea behind it makes it so that each and every, even from campaign to campaign, even if it is the same ref, like sometimes it just makes each and every experience unique.
Agreed.
Spot on.
Any other thoughts?
Not particularly, but I did have a thought on the advantage-disadvantage system.
Okay.
I know that's like completely off topic, but
that's all right. We are. This is the topic of running games. So,
okay. So everyone kept talking about advantage-disadvantage, and as a concept, I think it's really interesting. Like a lot of systems, like Risk is like completely advantage-disadvantage, but I never really understood it from a lore perspective. Yeah, you roll 2 dice and take the higher one if you have advantage, take the lower one if you have disadvantage. But what exactly does that mean in character? I never really understood that. Like, there was no answer for that.
You would have to actually play the game and experience it. And I haven't, so I can't comment on that.
Honestly, it is a rule that simplifies the math that you see in other games. So if you're a 2E guy, first and second edition bonuses on magic items, for example, go all the way up to like +5, right? You have +5 Holy Avenger and all of that, right? +3, +5, something like that. Whereas 5E, you'll never see a bonus on anything written in the rules that's higher than a +3 on an item. And after +3, they just jump to advantage.
Yeah, I find that weird. It's just like
it keeps the numbers small, is what it does.
If you want advantage on something, just add a couple of bonuses to it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
I don't understand adding dice to the equation, like adding more dice. I mean,
because players like to roll dice. It is a fundamental of game design. That is why bucket of dice systems are really popular. People like clickety-clackety math rocks.
I don't mind rolling multiple dice, but a game like Vampire, where that's pretty much all you do is roll a bunch of 10-sided, that kind of bugged me,
The system also has to matter. I mean, dice pool systems can be an issue, but the reason for that, honestly, the psychology of that, because there is psychology at work there, is people like to roll dice.
This is true.
So it's people like to roll dice, and even small math is annoying to a lot of people. So if you can say roll another die instead of calculate in an additional +2 bonus on the fly, or you can calculate it as saying, okay, well, that would give you advantage, but you're also in a situation that would give you disadvantage, therefore they equal out. Instead of saying, all right, well, that's +3 for this, that's -1 for that, it's +2 for that, and +1 for that, or -1 for that. It's a quick and easy way. Now, and that's that's why 5e is so player friendly, is that it is smooth. That's probably one of the reasons why it's become so mainstream. In addition to some of the PR that it's got, I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying that I understand why. Also,
having played everything up to 3rd edition, I 4th edition, I wasn't even in the hobby at the time. So I kind of came back into it with 5th edition, and I've played it a couple times, but it just wasn't for me, so I kind of gave up on it.
Also understand that I think too that 5e and its systems are a direct response to 3rd edition.
True.
Just as 4th edition was a response to 3rd edition, but it got it wrong. So 5th edition is a response to 3rd edition, which is in my mind pretty much unplayable. A lot of people will argue, but as a DM trying to run 3rd edition, I have a day job. I don't need another one. And the amount of mechanical work that you had to put in to actually run functional third edition was more than I really. It took all the fun out of it.
Well, it is the reason why I created Lenharrow, and probably also the reason once I started playing Lenharrow that I don't want to play anything else as far as fantasy role playing is concerned, because it works for me because I put everything I love into a game system.
I mean,
So
you can see it in third edition stat blocks.
Right.
If you look at any Dragon Magazine article, for example, or any published adventure, one monster description or one NPC description can take most of a page.
Right.
There's just way too much going on there. So,
well, it was my experience that as the editions got higher, the players got more powerful, and it seemed like to me like the monsters got less powerful. That's kind of what I didn't like about it. There should be some kind of balance so that the players have a challenge instead of making it too easy.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the big problems with 5e. 5e actually, as a core mechanic, is not a bad mechanic. There's just too much built onto 5e to make the game too player friendly. I think there's also a lot of mythology and folklore that's evolved in the gaming community that says that certain things are bad when they're really not, and that's often perpetuated by people who've never actually played with them, like encumbrance. Encumbrance isn't that bad, and it's actually fun, and it's not that hard. But if you read about it, it sounds bad.
Right.
Things like keeping track of ammunition or spell components. Sure, that may be extra work, but it's not that much work.
Not really.
And ultimately, it's what makes your game fun. Nothing is more exciting than being 3 levels down in a dungeon, being down to your last 2 arrows, and being out of, where the wizard's got only the spell components for his most useless spell. And you're out of heals for the day, and that scarcity. Or how often does an adventure, a side adventure or side quest, pop up out of that scarcity? Character death creates adventure. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want my character to die." First of all, people get too attached to characters nowadays, and that's also probably because characters are much more involved in their creation nowadays. Back when you could literally write them on a piece of notebook paper while you were not paying attention in class.
And then we would play. We never had session zeros, from what I remember.
You did, but you didn't. They weren't at a table. Session 0 was like sitting at the lunch table with your buddy going, "Hey man, I'm going to run a D&D campaign based on that music video that we watched last week, and you want in? Sure. All right, we'll have a character ready by Tuesday." Yeah, and you usually were playing with friends, so who really needs a session 0 when you're playing with friends?
When they would show up with a character ready to go, generally.
A session 0 is really not to go too far afield, but a session 0 is really something that's only really all that useful with strangers. Because if you're playing with your good friends, if you don't know them well enough to where you've already covered session 0, except for like the specifics of what you want in the campaign, like, are they really good of a friend?
We actually did our first one Monday night, live on YouTube, and it actually works for that situation. But I don't think if you're sitting around a table, a session 0 is necessary.
Session 0, for me, every time I've run one, because my players now expect them, or not all of them, but I had some players that would expect them. I would do the session 0, and it would just be crickets.
Right.
I'm like, okay, because nobody actually needed it. However, if I was to go to a shop or a convention and sit down with strangers, I think it's important. I think safety tools is another big hot conversation point where like, the old schoolers like, we don't need these safety tools. Yes, you do. You've always had them. You just didn't call them safety tools, and they weren't written in an essay form. The safety tool back in the day was looking at the DM across the table when he crossed the line going, dude, WTF, man, except for we didn't just use an abbreviation.
Right, exactly.
Safety tools back in the day was, that's not cool, man. Or, safety tools was, all right, you've gone too far. Or just having common decency, of course, but that's hard to have with strangers because everybody's barometer is different on that. Anyways.
It's all good, man. So I'm going to ask if everybody here, any last bit thoughts on the official Lenharrow game rules, as it were?
Wasn't there 3 more you said?
No, I thought so, but I had decided to eliminate those because they were just pretty much going over what we'd already covered. I had remembered putting them in, and then I forgot that I took them out before I started doing this. Like I said, I just kind of decided to do this live on the fly. So go ahead, Red. What do you think of our official rules?
They're pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Pretty much telling you how to run, really. That'd be a good ref.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to do with this is go over and show what Lenharrow does as a game and let people decide for themselves whether they want to play it. So your thoughts, Jake?
My personal thoughts is these 7 rules feel less like rules specific to Lenharrow and more like general guidelines for like every kind of game.
That's kind of what I was going for.
Yeah.
That was you, yeah.
I think they're good rules. I think what you've accomplished here is something that a lot of RPGs fail at, and that's actually telling people how to play a game or how to run a game. There's a lot of here's the rules, but there's not a lot of the soft skills that are associated with running a game. The instructional aspects of the actual process of running a game. There's the mechanics. I have a bug on me, and I hope it's not a spider.
I've been there. I'm mostly in my basement, so that's.
Oh my! And I live in a state where we have dangerous spiders. So.
Oh.
Yeah. But it's not a spider. It's just a gnat because it's the hot buggy season here in Missouri. So
I think those are everywhere, especially here in
Missouri.
Missouri. That's mean, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Pacific Northwest born and bred. We moved here last year because the cost of living on the West Coast was just too expensive. But I have family here, so but yeah, it's definitely a different thing. We have seasons here. We didn't have seasons back in Washington. You just had constant one season.
I did want to kind of move on now. I do have a bunch of abbreviations, a page full of that, but we don't have to really look at that. And then we go into the actual game mechanics of our system. We're already over an hour and a half in, so I just kind of want to. Will be a to be continued type of thing. I definitely want to continue this as a series, but I did like this discussion, and I appreciate you all jumping in. As far as our chapter 1 in our referee's playbook, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about, I go into a bit about calling the shots while telling a story. Now, we don't have to read the whole thing because that's exactly what I was trying to avoid. I did a video like that about our light edition. And I don't know, it just didn't seem to work for me, so I wanted to do something completely different.
I watched that video and I got kind of bored because it was like if I wanted to read the light edition, I would have just pulled it up.
Well, that's what it became, was an instructional video. I didn't really want that. I kind of wanted this is our game system, what do you think? So I have some key points, recognizing your weak points and learning to get around them. So we'll start with Red. What do you think about that?
What do you mean?
As a ref, it's a good thing as a ref to be good at being a good ref. There are 3 things that you should have about yourself to run a game, and the first one would be recognizing your weak points and learning to get around them. So, what do you think about that as a beginning player and ref?
Well, like sometimes you want to force players into a story. And then sometimes they don't want to continue in that way. And so it's just you got to tell the difference between doing something specific or doing another, letting them choose. So it's a difference between just making them.
Well, this comes with experience, Red. You recognize your weak points. Yeah. What I mean by learning to get around them is you learn to work with your weak points and turn them into strong points. Look, so what you're saying is you would want them to rigidly go on a path. That's something that is called railroading, which most players and referees alike, in my experience, don't really care for. A lot of adventures are written that way, but that's, as a game master, that's kind of what you're here for. You kind of You're kind of here to let the players play while still trying to keep them focused on a story. That doesn't mean making them do anything. So, and my advice on that one is recognize that you want them to continue the story, but focus on letting them do it on their own in some manner. You just got to kind of not push, but nudge, and by giving them threads and plot points and clues that they will want to follow. And if they don't like that one, give them something else.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Jake? What do you think?
Me personally, I think one of my biggest weak points right now is running combat. I feel like as a ref, I still run combat as if I were a player. But because of how many enemies I run as a referee, it just slows down the game to do it that way.
Now, do you consider that a weak point or a strong point? Because that's going to be our number 2 topic.
It's a very big weak point because I'm not really sure how my players feel about it because they've never really brought it up. But from my experience, it feels like it slows down the game a lot, and it makes it so that players become disinterested, and I haven't been able... Like, I sit there and it's just like, I have 15 goblins, and I have, 5 players. Okay, each goblin has... there's 3 goblins to a player, and then I'm sitting there going, okay, I'll roll the d6s. Okay, so this goblin attacks. It's just... The way it works in my head, it just goes by so slowly, and it just feels like there's this dead air for a few minutes while I'm running combat.
Well, I've been there. How would you, since you're a more experienced game master than Warren, or referee, as it were, how would you turn that into a strong point?
I'm not really too sure. I've been meaning to ask for advice on it. The way I've been getting around it lately is that I've been oversimplifying my combat to the point where it's like there have been instances where I just sit there and be like, I don't even really look at the die rolls. I just sit there and generalize. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's 2 misses and a hit. Okay, 5 points of damage. Hope no one notices. I didn't really look.
Okay, so point of advice. You can turn that into a strong point. It's good that you know the combat system as a player. So knowing the combat system as a player, you also are on that other side as a player of the screen, as it were, or shield, as we like to call it. So from the player's perspective, what would you do to make you as a game master run that combat faster?
Well,
I'm guilty of this too, of having combat drag out. So I get you.
One of the things that I've been trying to do to mitigate the issue is I'd sit there and it's after I did a bunch of die rolls and calculating in my head, I'd sit there and think of, okay, so this is a miss. Okay, the goblin did something stupid. And then I turn it into a little joke. Oh, the goblin rolled a 1. It tripped and fell.
You role play it. That's exactly right. That's good.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I'm really good at the role playing aspect of it.
Any other thoughts?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right, so we'll move on to number 2. Recognizing your strong points and learn how to use them, which kind of goes with what we were talking about weak points. So go ahead, Jake, and continue. And what are some of your strong points, and how do you use them?
Okay. So one of my biggest strong points is I like to take a lot of time in the planning phase to think of really creative ways to do things. I remember very specifically, I've had a lot of interesting combat situations because of pre-planning and stuff. One really interesting combat situation that I loved running was one time in a campaign where my party was on a ship. I threw in a little bit of a homebrew monster that I called a sea goblin, and basically they were just goblins that lived in the ocean and this, that, and the other thing. But the thing is, I had this entire combat situation planned out where they would try to overtake the ship and forcibly steer them into some rocks.
Well, hey, that's a good tactic to take. Basically, we call it reskinning, like in video games, where you take a monster and you do something different to it to make it feel a little different. So that is a strong point.
So they were like clinging onto the ship, pushing it, and then the combat was less about killing the goblins and more preventing them from doing what they were trying to do.
So it turned it into a role-playing experience. So that's kind of turning your weak point into a strong point, isn't it?
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
I think I'm good.
Okay. How about you, Red? What do you think is some of your strong points? Not necessarily as a ref, but as a player, since you have more experience as a player.
Yeah, well, I would say the strong points is like knowing the system more, because like the character sheets kind of, because sometimes if you look at it the first time, you get probably confused and you wouldn't know which pages to go to. I think that's probably a strong point because I know exactly where everything is and where to go for it.
I see that turns it into a strong point as a ref too.
Yeah,
you could use that as a ref, knowing where everything's at.
so I can to help like new players out, like I can help them know where everything is.
Agreed. All right. Any other thoughts?
No, not really.
Okay, so that'll take us to the third point in this calling the shots while telling the story. Experience. The more games you run, the better referee you'll be, so don't get discouraged. Give me your thoughts on that, Red.
Well, yeah, the more games you run, the more experience you have. So, like, eventually you'll probably get, like, as good as you are, knowing exactly how to do it. Because, like, that's how it works, you get better.
Okay.
Because you learn how to, because, like, if you make a mistake, you can learn from it, No, not
This is true. You always have more to learn. Okay, any thoughts?
Not really.
Okay, Jake, how about you? Do you agree with that?
I really agree with that. Practice makes better all the time.
Not
the more
perfect,
you work
better.
at something, the better you get at it. I mean, what were we going to say?
Go ahead, Jake. I could go. We'll jump to Eli here in a second, and we'll let him talk about all three topics at once. And then we'll get into how you call those shots while telling a story. So, do you have any other thoughts?
Not particularly. I'm just saying the more you try something, the better you get at it. Even if you think that you're not that great at it, the more you try, the more you'll understand, and it helps to learn more about yourself, really.
Okay. All right, we're talking about calling the shots while telling a story, Eli. So I have 3 points here: recognizing your weak points and learning to get around them, recognizing your strong points and learn how to use them, and experience. The more games you run, the better the referee you'll soon be. So don't get discouraged. Any thoughts on those topics?
It's pretty basic wisdom.
I thought so.
In general, although it is also the sort of thing that I feel to a new GM is. I mentioned it earlier. There's this over exploded, aggrandized idea of what being a GM is, as opposed to what it actually is. And I think this gets lost in that a lot of times too. It's just nobody starts out a great DM.
No.
A great GM. Well, I won't say nobody because that's absolutely that's too absolutist. I'm sure there has been a few people in the long history of gaming who just jump into it and are badass.
Well, there are people who have a lot of talent. I mean, as a ref, a lot of people kept telling me that I had a lot of talent, and that's why they encouraged me to run games.
Yeah, talent only goes so far, though.
Exactly.
And it's the skill that truly makes it. I mean, if I can parallel another thing, I sculpt miniatures. I'm not great at sculpting.
What? A statue in the Discord that looked really good.
I didn't sculpt that. That's a 3D. That's a 3D model. But
you were just painting that one?
Yeah, I just painted that for my wife.
Okay. So full disclosure.
No, I'm big on not taking credit for things because I also own a small miniature company, and the stuff on that miniature company is a combination of things that I have sculpted but also things that I've contracted other sculptors to do. And this kind of feeds into what I was saying, and this is also pertinent to GMing.
Do you have a link to that on your channel?
No, I don't. But I can throw one up on your Discord. Anyways,
great.
I have talent at sculpting. What I don't have is skill, and I have not put the man hours into it to get to a point where I no longer have to contract other sculptors to do things. The reason I contract other sculptors is because I don't have that level of efficiency and proficiency built up to be able to keep a production schedule. Now, flipping that over to gaming as a GM, raw talent will get you in the door, but it is over time and repetition and learning your limitations and your strengths and weaknesses that you will get better and you will gain the skill of being a GM. Talent, skill. Skill is always going to, and skill is something you can only achieve over time and actually doing.
This is true. So, like my 3 points at the end, it's experience makes the ref.
Yep.
All right. Now, the other thing you can do while telling a story is you can bring in source material. A lot of refs think they have to make up everything. They don't. The best thing to do is either use if you don't have anything planned or want to plan something but don't feel that you can make it up. You can either use a pre-made adventure, or you can do things like I like to bring in source material from books, movies, and games to create a game scenario. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can just go, well, I like a perfect example for me is a show called Robin of Sherwood, and I took that storyline from the first episode and turned that into an adventure. And you can pretty much do that with anything you like, a movie, a cartoon, a TV series. We'll go ahead and continue on. We'll go to Jake, seeing how it looks like Eli's a little busy there.
Oh no, I was just trying to get you that link, but go ahead, okay. Jake, because I will overtalk anything. So
okay, we'll get back to you on
Let
that.
the short and sweet folks get out of the way first before they have to wait through my ramble.
Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Ramble. Wait, what was the question? My bad.
Okay, using source material as a game master.
Okay. Honestly, using source material I think is really great. I mean, a lot of people are like, use your own material, but it's like, wouldn't it be fun to just sit there and be like, especially if your players really like something, like say Lord of the Rings, like, wouldn't it be cool to just sit there and be like, here's my Lord of the Rings campaign, or something like that.
True enough. Any other thoughts?
Honestly, all I'm being reminded of is the other day when we were watching that Wizard of Oz adaptation, The Wiz, on Netflix. You were saying how The Wizard of Oz felt like a game session.
It has been turned into an adventure.
And that resonated with me on a level where it was like, it feels like you could look at just about anything and turn it into an adventure. Like, people have done Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that, but it's just using source material can enhance gaming, but I think it should be used very sparingly because over relying on it makes it feel like you have no identity in your campaigns.
That's a very good point. Okay, Red.
Yeah.
What do you think about using source material as part of your games?
It's really something that I would do a lot because like I would run modules from D&D modules that have been converted to Lenharrow because you have a few of those conversion things. Yeah, because that's using source material. You're using someone else's thing, but you're still telling a story.
This is true. Now, again, to Jake's point, overusing source material can be a bad thing, but it also would lead into you creating your own adventures. Yeah. All right, that takes us over to Eli. What are your thoughts?
First of all, I don't think you can overuse source material. I think it comes down to how you use it. If you were doing a one-to-one direct translation constantly, yes, that's going to get a little weird and it's going to wear a little thin. However, if you are good, if you get good at taking inspiration from things and then working them into your game, you will never be without an idea. I speak as an entirely homebrewed GM. I don't run published modules, not for any weird prejudice or elitism or anything. I started out being a very poor gamer and couldn't buy a lot of published materials, so I just had to make it up myself. Like I mentioned earlier, my first adventure I ever ran was one I wrote up on my own, and it just stuck. And so even when I do buy published material, I'm usually just robbing it for stuff for my games. You get good enough, anything becomes good source material, and this is the key thing. You don't have to pull from the same genre even.
This
that
is true.
crime drama, that police procedural you watched the other day, throw that into the middle of Waterdeep, and next thing you know, you've got a D&D adventure. The war drama that you watched could become your next D&D game. You just have to exchange tanks for ogres and giants, machine guns for fireballs. It's just, you get, once you start getting good at pulling from source material, and sometimes it's not as much as even just pulling whole plots and stuff. Sometimes it's, I like that character, I like that voice, I like that one element that they had in that throne room, and that's going to be in my next game. I think, was it one of the recent superhero movies? It was either the one with Namor or the one with Aquaman. I can't remember which one. They had a throne room that had a big giant megalodon shark jaw around the throne.
I think that was Aquaman.
Yeah, but and I'm like, okay, cool. I could definitely see that being a thing, to describe, some sort of pirate's lair in my nautical campaign. Why not? What else is gonna make a pirate lord look so badass as having like this giant shark jaw around the throne, in his flagship? So source material works in a lot of ways. It's not whole scenarios. It's not whole NPCs. It can be just pulling narrative beats, just little descriptive affectations. Like, I really love the dark and gritty presentation of the world, of the fantasy worlds in movies like Dragon Slayer, the old Jabberwocky movie, what's the other one? Hawk the Slayer.
Love Hawk the Slayer.
Watch it like every year. But those dark, dirty, gritty fantasy movies. But at the same time, any movie that's set in the Middle Ages usually will do that as well. That's how my fantasy worlds come out a lot. And those, I didn't lift stories or anything, but I lifted a visual. So source material works on a lot of different levels. It could be just like liking the voice of that one actor. And so, like, how many characters in your world sound like Sean Connery?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, that's it. Beg, borrow, and steal from everything.
I was going to read this little bit here. On a side note, bear in mind that not every game session is going to be turn out wonderful. In fact, if you play long enough, some will be just plain awful. Just remember that good sessions should outweigh the bad. If they don't, it may be time to take a break for a while and let someone else be ref. The game is meant to be played in good fun. Don't let things get to you. This is a game after all. In bad times, just remind your players of this fact. And always remember rule number 1, have fun. Now, as far as our ref guide is concerned, what I wanted to do on this is, let me show you this real quick here, Eli. If I get the right person on the screen.
I want to show you this.
This is what the cover of our ref guide looks like, if I remember how to use the screen or the camera. This whole book is really just a guideline for how to run games. Now, I do have an appendix in the back, a few appendices in the back on how to create worlds and charts for all that stuff, and descriptions for magical devices, and a full adventure. However, it's all there, optional for the game master. So, on that note, I was gonna kind of wrap up because I didn't want to go over 2 hours for this video. But again, on that note, kind of to be continued on Referee's Playbook and Lenharrow Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures Enhanced Edition in general. So let me ask you guys this for one final topic of discussion. What do you think so far of how we've presented the Lenharrow Referee's Guide?
I have not seen much of it, but from what I have seen, seems pretty really useful information on the instruction of running games.
That was my goal.
Like I said before, that's something that's lacking in a lot of games. Even companies who've been at it for decades still seem to fail to have a lot of really clear, useful instructional information on the actual running of a game. Yeah, they give you plenty of rules, and they kind of dip a toe in, but they never really go into it. It's pretty bad when it's come down to third-party authors to write really good texts on running games. That shouldn't be. If you were a game company whose bread and butter is these big RPGs, why are you not telling people how to run games? Or why are you burying them in afterthought books? For example, 5th edition, one of the best books in that lineup is the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, but nobody uses it. Nobody uses it.
This is very true.
And all of the wisdom of how to run a game is in the DMG. It's not in the player's handbook.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'm the only one on camera right now.
Yes, you are, sir. That's you were talking. I wanted to let you go ahead and say what you wanted to say at the end here, and I was going to do the same for Jake and Red, and then close.
No, that's it. I mean, I think you got a good instructional bit, and it's from what I've seen, it's a pretty solid conclusion.
Pretty much the rest of the first chapter, that's all it is. I go into how to help players make characters, and then I go into how to run combat, and that's the first chapter. It's just how to play the game.
Cool.
Plus advice on how to do that. Okay, so Jake, let me see if I can do this. I think I have to go back into this to move you guys around, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, what I think of the referee's his guide, especially from what we've been going so far, is, again, it feels like something that you could easily put in other systems. And the way I think of it, like, especially the first chapter, is just stuff that's like, it should be no-brainer, but it's something that I feel like a lot of people would just need to know. And like a lot of people just lack in other systems. And it's just like, I don't know. Like some systems feel like this is the end all be all. This is what you need to do. Blah, 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 blah. And this system is like, yeah, here's what we have, but you don't have to use any of it.
Use what you like.
Use what you like.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Not really.
All right. We'll throw you up there, Red. And you can give it your final thoughts on the referee's guide, the playbook, referee's playbook.
Yeah, well, the guide there is actually very useful. It's got all the information you need to run a game, and like it's got everything important for running a game. It's got like tips on how to like get your players into the adventures. It's got a bunch of stuff on how running like combat, running a bunch of other stuff in there. It's just basically how to be a ref. So it's really good. That's what I think it is.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I wrote the book, but all right. So, any other thoughts, guys? Before I kind of close out here, because I thought this was a really good session. I'm definitely going to do one next week and just kind of continue. But I'm going to go into how to make characters a little bit more.
Touching on something that Jake had mentioned with texts being all about like, oh, this is how you do the thing. I think it's important to realize that every text for gaming is going to be written with a pretty authoritative voice because they want you to take it seriously and they want you to actually if you write from a weak point of view, a weak standpoint, it's often going to be lost on the reader. But I think it's important to understand that, yes, while texts are often written with a very authoritative voice, I don't think anybody out there, well, and again, I don't think most people out there are really trying to tell you this is the only way and that everything that they're saying is absolute golden shit and you shouldn't actually ignore it. The fact of the matter is that somebody who believes in what they're saying is going to sound like they believe in what they're saying. At the same time, though, I think that most people in the gaming community realize that you can take and leave whatever you want. They're just presenting their best ideas. So I would hesitate to think that anybody who is writing a book on how to run games is trying to say that this is the only way to do it. And anybody who asserts that that is the case is actually full of it. So if you're new to gaming, if you're new to running games, there's a lot of bad wisdom out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of propaganda, and there's a lot of false nostalgia. You'll often see it in OSR communities where they're talking about how D&D was. No, it wasn't. D&D may have been that at your table, but I guarantee you D&D as a whole was not that. It wasn't even that, I mentioned earlier, it wasn't even that at Arneson or Gygax's table.
I kind of look at it as not necessarily what D&D was, but what gaming to us is.
Well, and like I said, it's that false nostalgia. It's this idea that somehow D&D or any game, because there are many games that are old enough to have this similar nostalgia, but you usually hear it in OSR communities, which are generally geared towards D&D-esque games. There's this attitude of this weird authoritative, dogmatic adherence to this false representation of what the game actually was, when most people and it exists in the absence of the understanding that back then most people's understanding of the game went only as far as their table. We didn't have the internet. Most people didn't have access to giant conventions. Publications weren't all that extensively used or read. The most you might have is for me, in my early days, there were 3 gaming groups across the various neighborhoods, and we might cross-pollinate ideas. But even still, every table was different. The tables have always been accepted as different. So I get the long and the short of it is that people are going to write from a position of authority, but understand that is their position. It's not the position.
I agree. Okay, any other thoughts, Jake? Or are you good? Are you muted, Jake?
No, I'm good. I'm actually getting a lot of technical difficulties on my end, so.
Oh, okay, no problem. So, anything to add?
No, I'm not muted.
Okay. How about you, Red? Anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
All right, you guys can hang out and chat after I close out the stream, but I just wanted to close out with a few words on how I feel about things. So cool. Let me do that, and then I will end the broadcast, and we can continue talking if you guys like.
I'm going to mute myself and off-camera myself so I can eat my breakfast.
Sounds good. Okay, so for me, role-playing has been one of the better parts of my life, besides my wife, my family. I wanted to share what I love with everybody. I loved AD&D first and second edition, and I started with the old D&D basic stuff. But when it came to third edition, it just didn't feel that way to me anymore. So I decided, along with my wife, the Tiger, to create a game system that I could share with everybody so that we could just continue playing the game we love, the way that we want to play it as referees and as players. And that was my goal with the Lenharrow Fantasy Adventures, either the light or the enhanced editions. It's basically the same concept. It's the same game. There's just a lot more in the enhanced edition. And as far as Lenharrow Referee's Guide and the Referee's Playbook is concerned, your playbook is something you grow into. You take the tools that you want to use and you learn and experience games as you grow as a referee and a game master. And that all being said, I thanks for anybody who's watching, and we're gonna sign out here. And thank you to Elfbait and Jake Pendragon and Red Power Ranger Fan 27. This has been a good discussion. We're going to do this again next week, and we're going to focus on the Lenharrow Player's Guide and its accessory, the Lenharrow Characters Companion, and how to create characters. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again next time.